Hello everyone, Naushad here. In this tutorial we'll see how to implement the Firebase Auth service from a Xamarin.Forms application. To begin with, I've already created a project called XF Firebase Auth. I've got 3 pages. Main page.xaml, which has got a label, entry for the email, an entry for the password, and I've got 2 buttons for login and sign up. On the logged in page, we simply display a message, hello logged in user, and from this logged in page we could sign out a user using the dependency service. And on the sign up page, I've got 2 entry, one for the email and one for the password, and a button having an event handler sign up clicked. I presume you know how to create a XAML file, so just copy and paste that. This tutorial is all about how to implement the backend. To implement Firebase Auth, we need to add 2 NuGet packages on our Android project. So if you right click and download 2 NuGet packages, one is Xamarin.Firebase.core and another one is Xamarin.Firebase.auth. So we need to download these 2 NuGet packages for the Android. I've already added, so that's for you to add. And on iOS, right click and add NuGet package Xamarin.Firebase.ios.auth. So that's 3 NuGet packages needed for Android and iOS. So let's check the Firebase Console. So you need to have an Firebase Console account. Go to your Firebase Console account, and then you'll have all your projects like this. So I'll select my project. So this is my project that's currently, I'm going to add the authentication. So under this project, click on authentication, sign in method, and for email and password you need to enable it and save it. I've already done that, so don't do anything. So we again go right click on the project settings, and then for your project we need to copy this package name, and that was for our Android. So these are the few changes we need to make on our Android.manifest. So properties, Android.manifest. So we need to change this package name. Same goes for the iOS package name. We just copy the bundle ID, and from the info.plist we need to change this bundle ID to the one from our Firebase Console application. So once we have done that, we need to download this GoogleService-Info.plist. So right click, that's gonna be downloaded to your desired location. And for the Android, you need to download this Google Service.json file. Let's check how we need to add these 2 files to our specific project. So on our Android, we need to right click, add existing file, and then browse for the google.service.json where you have downloaded it. Open, copy to the file directory. So once the file has been added, let's check the build action. That has to be google service.json. iOS. Now add the existing files, and then GoogleService-Info.plist. Again, copy to file directory. And for this, build action has to be embedded resource. So now that we have added the JSON file, we need to add one more thing on our main activity.cs. So inside this main activity.cs, we need to using Firebase. So before loading the app, we need to add Firebase app dot initialize app, passing the application dot context. So that's it done for the Android. And for iOS, we need to, inside the app delegate.cs, we need to also initialize the Firebase Auth before loading the application. So inside app delegate.cs, we need to initialize this Firebase package. So we simply say Firebase dot core dot app dot configure. So that's done from the iOS side as well. Let's see how we could use dependency service to log user in our Firebase console. So inside our shared project, let's add a new class, and that's an interface. So we like to call it iAuth. So inside this iAuth.cs file, let's have a task of type string, call it logging with email and password. And having two parameters. And we'll need to have one more for sign up. Let's using threads. Also, we'll have bool sign out and bool is sign in. So this is done from our shared project. Inside the Android project, right click and add a new class called auth, DROIT, and this class inherits from the iAuth. So we need to implement all the interfaces. We don't need the constructor. And for iOS, let's also add a new class called auth iOS.cs. This one also inherited from the iAuth. Don't need the constructor here too. Let's implement all the method. Let's implement auth droid.cs file. So the first thing we need to do using Xamarin.Forms, Also we need to use using Firebase.Auth. So let's look in the sign-in method. We simply say variable user is equals to Firebase dot auth dot Firebase auth dot instance dot current user, and we simply return user if not null. So this is our aSign-in method. We are checking if the user is signed in or not. If the user is not signed in, it's going to return false. And for the sign out, let's implement this. We need to use try catch block. So for the sign out, we simply say Firebase dot auth dot Firebase auth dot instance, and we call the sign out method. And that's it, done for the sign out method. If it's been signed out, we want to return true. So we say, and let's work on sign up user with email and password. So we need to have again the try catch block to handle any exception. I need one more catch block. So for creating a new user, we simply say variable new user is equals to await Firebase dot auth dot Firebase auth dot instance dot create user with email and password async, and we need to pass in our email and password parameter. Obviously we need to make this method async, and to get the token of new created user, we say variable token equal to await new user dot get id token async, and this takes an parameter if you want to have a new token every single time. We say simply false for that, and we return token dot token. Let's handle the exception. Firebase auth invalid user exception e. We're going to print e dot print stake and return string dot empty. And we also need to catch another exception, Firebase invalid credential exception. Invalid credential exception E. We just simply copy and paste the code here. Let's copy this chunk of code for login a user. For login a user, we just need to change only one thing. That is, instead of creating user with, we need to call sign in user with email and password async. And we need to also make this method async. Let's give the reference for the dependency service. So we say assembly dependency type of the class name. So simply copy and paste. We need to import using auth.roid. So that's it done. Now let's implement the code for auth.ios. Let's do the reference for dependency service first. The class name would be iOS. We need to use using Xamarin.Forms. Also need to use Firebase Auth. So for the aSignin method, we simply say variable user is equals to auth dot default instance dot current user, and we want to return the user, if not null. Let's check out the sign out method. For the sign out method, we call auth dot default instance dot sign out, and that takes foundation ns error. So we've got to say out ns error and we say return errors equal to null. We need to import foundation using foundation. Let's put this inside a try catch block so we could catch any exception. The exception we just return false. Let's see how to sign up a user from the iOS implementation. So we could call variable new user is equals to await auth dot default instance dot create user async, and we pass our email and password parameter. Going to return await new user dot get ID token async method. We could, let's put that inside the try catch block for catching an exception. Catch exception E. String dot empty, and make this method async. So let's copy this code. It's gonna be exactly same for logging the user, except we just need to change the name of the method, and this time it's gonna be user. And we call dot sign in user with email and password. So it's a sign in with password async. And let's make this method async. So that's done the implementation on auth ios.cs. Let's see how we could call this method to sign up a user. So inside our sign up page, we've got an entry for the email input, the entry for the password input, and I've got a button with the event handler sign up clicked. So let's go sign up page.xaml.cs file. Let's initialize auth inside the constructor page. We say dependency service dot get, and we pass our IOs. So that's with a capital A. So now let's create the sign up clicked event handler. So we say void sign up clicked, and that takes object sender and event actually. Let's make this method async. So we want to say variable user is equals to auth dot sign up with email and password, and we need to pass in our email input dot text followed by password input dot text. So now if the user has been created, we need to divert our user to a new main page for login. So you simply say if user is not equal to null. First we need to display an alert, so it's just simply display alert, takes 3 parameters. So simply say new user created, and also we need to call the sign out method. So we say variable sign out is equals to auth dot sign out, and if sign out, we need to redirect the user to our main page. So say application dot current dot main page is equals to new main page. Else we display an alert that there was a problem. So this is our implementation for the sign up clicked event handler. First we are creating a new user using the auth.signup with email and password, and if the user has been created successfully, we are displaying an alert and also redirecting the user to the main page. If not, then we want to display an alert that the user hasn't been created. So let's check the main page. So inside the main page we do have an entry for the email input, an entry for the password input. We also have two buttons for login and one for taking the user to the sign up page. So if we go in main page.xaml.cs file, again we need to initialize the auth service simply by calling the dependency service.get. That's it. So for the logging clicked event handler, we create a method async void login clicked. So inside this method we simply try to get the token, which is of type string, using await auth dot logging with email and password, which takes our email input dot text and password input dot text as parameter. Also we check if token is not equal to string dot empty. We want to redirect the user to a new signed in page. So you simply say application dot current dot main page is equals to new log page. Token. Else we want to display an alert. So for the sign up clicked event handler, we create a method called sign up clicked, passing the object sender and event types E. We simply want to sign out any logged in user, calling sign out auth dot sign out method, and if sign out, we want to divert the user to the new sign up page. So application dot current dot main page is equals to new sign up page. So let's go inside the logged page and implement the sign out button clicked event handler. So inside the log page we simply display an message hello logged user, and we have an event handler called sign out button clicked. So let's go into the code behind. Again, the first thing, initialize the IAuth using the dependency service. And for the sign out button clicked event handler, okay, we need to pass object sender and event args e. So we are signing out the user calling auth.signout method, and if signed out, this time the main page, we want to direct them to our main page so they could log in. Let's save it. The final bit of code on our app.xaml.cs. Let's initialize the IAuth. Again, I copy and paste this code from here. So we are initializing the auth using the dependency service. So this time, if the user is signed in using the auth.isSignIn method, so if the user is signed in, the new page becomes new logged page, else the main page would be new main page. So let's run the code and see if everything is working in right order. So the application is running. Let's check on our backend on our Firebase Console. Click on Authentication, Users. We don't have any user yet. So I click on the Create New User button, and we get diverted to Create New User. I say nowshot@email.com. Password is password, and then we click the sign up button. Displays an success, new user created. We click OK, and then we've been redirected to the main page for login. Before we log in, let's check on this tab and see if a new user has been created. So now we see there's a new user has been added using this email. So let's see if we could log back in using this credential. So the email was nowshot@email.com, and the password was password. So we click enter. So authentication is failed. Okay, because it's email, E-M-A-I-L. Let's click enter again, and this time the email and password was right. So we are back in our logged in page, and from here, if we click on the sign out button, we redirect it to our main page for login. So let's try again. nowshot@email.com. The password is password. Click enter. Yeah, we managed to log into the system. let's create another user, Tom at tom.com. Password is password. Click enter. Success, new user created. And let's check on our console, refresh this page. Yeah, the user has been created. Let's tom at tom.com. Password is password. Click enter. Yeah, and we can log in. Let's check out the sign out function. We click, and we did manage to sign out from the system. So a quick recap on how to implement Firebase Auth using Xamarin.Forms. So the first thing we need to do, go on our console, click on Authentication, sign up method, enable user to sign in with email and password, clicking this button, save it, click on project settings, download GoogleService.json file for Android and GoogleService-Info.plist for iOS. Make sure your bundle ID and your package name matches with your JSON file. For Android, inside the main activity.cs file, make sure you call this Firebase.initializeApp, passing the application context. And also your Google.json service, make sure the buildAction is GoogleService.json. And for iOS, inside the app delegate.cs, make sure to call firebase.core.app.configure method to initialize the Firebase Auth service. And for the dependency service, we have had 4 methods. One for logging user with email and password that returns a string. One for sign up with email and password that takes 2 parameter email and password that also returns a string. We do have a boolean to check if the user is signed out or not. Another method for if the user is signed in or not. So inside auth droid.cs, inside the boolean is sign in, we simply call firebase.auth.firebase.auth.instance.current user. We could make it even shorter, we just don't need that because we have already imported the Firebase Auth service there. Let's make it smaller here. And if the user is not signed in, we just simply return false. If not, we return true. For sign out, we call Firebase.instance.signout method and we return true. If there is any exception, we return false. For signing up in user with email and password, we call the Firebase auth.instance.create user with email and password async. We read the token using newuser.user.get id token async. That takes a variable if we want to have a new token every time or not. We simply say false and we return token.token. We also catch any exception if there is any. And we could simply copy and paste this code for login the user. For login the user, let's call it user rather than new user. So for login the user, we call Firebase auth.instance and then call sign in with email and password async, passing our email and password. parameter. Also catch for any exception if there is any. And for auth.ios, for the isSignin, we call this auth.defaultInstance.currentUser. If the user is logged in, we want to return true, and if it's not, we want to return false. For sign out, we call auth.defaultInstance.signout that takes an NS error as parameter, and we want to return true or false based if there is any error or not. To sign up in user, we use the auth.defaultInstance.create user async, pass in email and password, and we want to pass the token, so we return await.newuser.user.get id token async. To log in a user, we just call auth.defaultInstance.signin with password async. And inside our app.xaml.cs, and from our shared code, we initialize the auth service using the dependency service. We call auth.isSignis. We are checking if the user is signed in or not. So if the user is signed in, we redirect our user to our logged in page. If not, we ask the user to log in, directing them to the main page. So that was it for this tutorial. If you have liked this video, make sure you like, share and subscribe. And I should see you on my next tutorial. Thank you.